Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. A very interesting basketball recruiting note from the weekend. Okay. So obviously 2025 is in the books. We know all the guys that are going to be playing college basketball next year. And it's really kind of the time that you start to look ahead to 2026. Peach Jam, by the way, is coming up next week. The Adidas championships in LA, not far from where I am, are taking place next week. So summer circuit stuff is coming to an end, which will then lead to fall visits, which will then lead to commitments. And it feels like the class of 2026, it feels like things are a little bit quieter. I think it'll pick up in September, October when players visit campuses, okay? But there was one player that it felt like we all felt pretty good, five-star player, really good, that we kind of knew where he was going. His name is Jason Crowe Jr., okay? He is a five-star member of the class of 2026, number 5 player overall, according to 24/7 Sports. And, I'll just be transparent, is that he was basically, from the moment that his recruitment picked up, it seemed almost certain that he was going to go to Kentucky. The long and the short of it, and we'll get into details later. There's some interesting quotes we'll share later on in this segment. But basically, Jason Hart, who is an assistant at Kentucky, is best friends with his dad, Jason Crowe Sr., who briefly played in the NBA. Grew up together, and basically Jason Crowe Jr. has referred to Jason Hart as an uncle. And so I bring it up because kind of just felt like all these 2026 kids, Tyron Stokes, Caleb Holt, Talon Kinney, whatever, kind of wide open recruitments. Who knows who's going to end up where? Well, I bring it up because it felt like Jason Crowe Jr. was a done deal to Kentucky. That felt like the case even on Friday, July 4th, when late at night, Joe Tipton put out a tweet basically saying that, Jason Crowe Jr. is actually going to make his college announcement on July 19th. Now, what was interesting, or July 18th, excuse me. Now, what was interesting about that announcement, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it there. The 6'3" guard does not have a list of finalists publicly that he's choosing from. So I thought that was interesting, but I think we all assumed it was going to be Kentucky. Well, I bring it up because on Sunday night, we got another follow-up from Joe Tipton. And to quote our buddy Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend, because Joe Tipton tweeted out and reported on Sunday night, Kentucky is no longer seen as the front-runner for five-star Jason Crowe Jr., with another SEC school now gaining serious momentum. Well, after doing some digging, it feels like Missouri. Dennis Gates is the favorite. So what the heck is going on, and how bad of a look would this be if Mark Pope did not close on a five-star that was deemed to be an overwhelming Kentucky lean? Let's go ahead and discuss, okay? So first of all, Jason Crowe Jr., I think, listen, if you're watching this, I always like to tell a little bit about the game, but 6'3", dude is a bucket getter, okay? He's another one. I love these stories of kids that stay at the local high school with all their friends. He's from Inglewood. He's playing at Inglewood High School, and he's dominating the scene out here in LA, okay? But 6'3", lefty, great scorer, like A++ score. Kid just gets buckets. You want to know how good that he is? How about this? Over the weekend, he played in the Drew League. The Drew League is a pro-am league. Basically, a bunch of NBA dudes roll through. In the past, James Harden's played. The late, great Kobe Bryant has played. You got a bunch of guys rolling through the Drew League that play in the NBA. I think LeBron has played here and there. You got a bunch of dudes that have played in the NBA that are now retired. You have dudes that are playing overseas that were big-time college stars. This kid, as a 17-year-old, went to the Drew League this weekend and scored 45 points in a game. So it shows you how good he is. It shows what kind of scorer he is. And it shows that he is going to make a college very happy. Now, the big question becomes, how the heck did Missouri get in the mix? Because, again, Kentucky was deemed the favorite. There were others that were listed, but Missouri was never one that was seen to be a favorite. And so I did some digging, and really the best that I can come up with is 2 things as to why Missouri may have jumped out ahead in this recruitment. One, and by the way, this is assuming that Missouri is the favorite. We'll find out here soon enough when he actually commits. So the first thing, because I assumed it was Kentucky, okay? And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to this. I'm not going to that. But I assumed it was Kentucky. And when it wasn't, I asked around to some people I trust. I think there are two things that stand out. One, bottom line is there is a much quicker path to playing time at the point guard spot at Missouri in 2026, 2027 than there is at Kentucky. And listen, I know it's the portal era. I know you can never really count on guys going year over year and playing multiple years. But Missouri, listen, roster's not as deep. Roster's not as talented heading into 2025, 2026. A couple of older veteran players there. But Jason Crowe, if he were to commit to Missouri, would probably step in, get the ball right away, and it would be go, 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 full speed ahead. If I can use a cross-sport reference, we're going to talk about Felix Ojo in a minute. Part of the reason Felix Ojo committed to Texas Tech, among many things, this was the football offensive tackle. He's basically going to be the starting left tackle the day that he steps on campus. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's kind of the same with Jason Crowe Jr. At Kentucky, I don't think you can say that right now because Jalen Lowe is coming in after a very productive 2 seasons at Pitt, but he's still only going into his junior year. And so if Jalen Lowe is as good as we expect, then the bottom line is that I don't think he's an NBA player, certainly not after 1 season at Kentucky. I know he went through the draft process. I know he got positive feedback, but I think it's very realistic that this is a 2-year guy at Kentucky, plays this year, has success, and comes back as a senior a year from now. By the way, this is part of the reason that Kentucky lost to Caden Lewis, the 4-star that was committed in this past cycle. I think Caden Lewis was fired up to come to Kentucky. Then they take a point guard with 2 years left of eligibility, and all of a sudden Caden Lewis is like, wait a second, I gotta wait till my junior year to have the ball in my hands? I might have to reconsider he ends up at Villanova. So I think that's one. Playing time, just probably a quicker path to playing time at Missouri. 2, the other thing, and it's so funny because in this NIL era, I think we always have to reevaluate. We have to reevaluate like just how we perceive things, and things are always changing. I think the rev share era is going to be very interesting. Okay. And let me explain why. It's because, listen, the rev share era, I think you all know, but I'll try to be brief here. Rev share is basically this. Every school is going to have 20 and a half. You've seen that number, $20.5 million. Every school is going to have to spend on their athletics for quote unquote NIL. Okay. They'll have $20.5 million. I would guess in most places, probably like 15 to 16 million, especially in the SEC, will go to football. Another 2.5, 3, maybe 4 on the high end will go to basketball. And then, baseball will get some, women's sports will get some, whatever. Well, I bring it up because everybody is going to use that money differently in both football and basketball. Again, Texas Tech listen, I talked to the agent of Felix Ojo. He was like, yeah, that's all coming from rev share. So Texas Tech is saying we're committing this much money out of our rev share pot to this offensive tackle. And where it comes into play in basketball is I think there's going to be some really tough decisions that all these schools have to make. Do you commit a lot of money up front to high school players? Do you commit any money to high school players and save it all for the portal? If you know you're going to have guys coming back, how much can you commit? Because, these guys might be here for 2-3 years and we got to make sure to take care of them. And so what I was told was that basically Missouri, they know they're going to need a point guard in 2026, 2027. And so they're like, dude, we will commit an inordinate amount of our rev share money to this kid. Now, I don't have an exact dollar. I've seen speculation. I'm not going to speculate. And by the way, I don't really care. And I'll say it, if it's a football player, if it's a baseball player, if it's a softball player, spend your money how you want. I'm not here to criticize. It's the pay for play world. We can say it's not pay for play. It is. So I just bring it up to very simply say that when you factor in that Kentucky might not have a starting point guard spot, and frankly, Missouri seems ready to commit an inordinate amount of money, in my opinion, into this kid, I think that's how you end up with Missouri being the favorite. Now, a couple things. One, we'll find out if Missouri actually gets them. That's just the perception right now that they are the favorite. But 2, I do think we have to have kind of a pseudo-honest conversation about Mark Pope and this staff and where they stand right now this particular summer. The thing I'll say about this is pretty straightforward. Like with Mark Pope, listen, some people might disagree. I think I have been totally fair to Mark Pope, and I think I've been not only a defender, but almost an advocate of Mark Pope. I remember when he got hired, people were like, oh, I'm like, guy knows what he's doing. Just give him time. And to his credit, I think he largely did basically everything that you could ask of a first-year head coach at Kentucky. Put together a roster on the fly last year. Won big games, beat Louisville, beat Tennessee twice, beat Florida, the eventual national champs, beat Duke. Like, the guy did what he was supposed to do. To quote Mark Pope, he understood the assignment. And so really, outside of stuff that wasn't realistic in year one, a national championship, a Final Four, or whatever, I would say that Mark Pope largely has done everything that you could have realistically asked for him. The only thing that I would say that you cannot say that Mark Pope has done so far is that he really hasn't landed any high-profile recruits outside of the state of Kentucky from the high school ranks. He hasn't landed any, actually, as a matter of fact. First recruiting class, okay, short notice. Travis Perry is already committed. He ends up staying. Trent Noah, you flip him from South Carolina. This past year, Jasper Johnson, Malachi Moreno, both top 25 prospects. Malachi Moreno, McDonald's All-American. They're both from Kentucky, though. And so I think this was kind of an important cycle for Mark Pope to prove, like, oh, we can go get the best of the best outside of Kentucky. And Jason Crowe Jr. was believed to be the guy who started all of it this year. Well, now, if you lose Jason Crowe Jr., I do think that perception that you cannot close on players with no Kentucky ties does not help, especially given his relationship with Jason Hart. Now, listen, I've said it. Love Jason Hart. Love Jay Hart. Have known him since his USC days, okay? I think he's a great assistant. I think he's going to be a great college head coach someday. But here is the relation. This is how deep the relationship is with Jason Crowe Jr. Producer Matt, you could play the quote that we could show the quote we found from KSR. So Jason Crowe Jr. did an interview with Kentucky Sports Radio where he said, honestly, that's like my uncle talking about Jason Hart. He used to train me when I was younger at Inglewood High School. That's just family right there. That's really like my uncle right there. When you have people that you know there and you know how they move, they're in there just to help you. Having him there, it definitely helps me look at Kentucky with a different eye. Listen, not a criticism of Jason Hart. I understand that this is an NIL rev share world and Missouri just might be willing to commit more. It doesn't change the fact that this is still a bad look. Now, a couple things. And by the way, it's not just for Jason Hart. It's for the whole staff, because the whole staff has been there now 18 months and they have yet to land a single player that does not have Kentucky ties. Now, a couple things. It's worth noting. 3 things. 1, kid has not committed yet. And just because right now Missouri is the favorite, he's supposed to commit July 18th or July 18th. Yeah, that's right. 11 days from now. So a lot of stuff can change between now and then. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. He may still end up at Kentucky. 2, I think you can argue, why even recruit high school? Doesn't even matter in this era. It's a different world. Who cares? You don't need to recruit the high schools in this era. Like, just go get a bunch of guys. But at the same time, I will say, I do think that it is a little bit of a negative. It is a little bit of a pushback on Mark Pope, but it's a little bit of a question that he does need to answer at some point in this cycle. Now, the good news is, by the way, you might only get Kentucky commits in this cycle, and you still might end up pretty good. Tyron Stokes, the number 1 player in America. He's playing high school ball, Sherman Oaks High School in California. I actually drove by that high school earlier today. Well, guess what? He is from Louisville originally, so you could very easily land him. Also, on top of that, who's the other one? Talon Kinney, 5-star point guard from the state of Kentucky, played at OTE with Jasper Johnson. So you just never know. And so I'm not ready to give up on this recruitment. If you're a Kentucky fan, I don't think it's time to give up on this recruitment. But I do think this was kind of an important one that you had to close. We will see what happens. Jason Crowe Jr. set to commit July 18th. We'll see what happens from there.